Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We are today through most of October, if not all of October, going to be in the Operations Center, the John Paul Rodriguez Operations Center. So the setup's a little different for those of you that follow us. Where's the flag? We're going to do the pledge and then we're going to start our meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And the clerk is on vacation, I think. So I believe Stuart Kahan is going to help us tonight. Right, Stuart?
Yes, ma'am. Trustee Fritchie.
Present.
Trustee White.
Present.
Trustee Quezada.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Lopez.
Present.
And Mayor Levin.
Present.
Do we have any mayors and trustees announcements?
I believe we do. Dana White, Trustee White, would you like to start us off?
I don't know if this is working.
It is. You don't realize it, but it is.
I'm always
Okay.
The Ossining Padres Hispanos is sponsoring the Hispanic Heritage Festival this Saturday. This is the fourth one that they've done. This time it will be in the post office parking lot downtown. I think it was in Nelson Park last year, right? And it's on Sunday, September 10th. I don't see the hours here. Trustee Quezada, do you know the hours? 10 o'clock?
12 to 7.
12 to 7, thank you. And there will be artists, dancing, crafts, food, product sales, and more, raffles, lots of tables. It's a fun family event, so please come. There'll be music. It's a great way to meet your fellow residents of the village of Ossining, and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Any other announcements? So, first of all, we have not had meetings for a couple of weeks. Normally in August, so many people are out that getting quorums and all that. It's just a nice break. And it's the fifth Wednesday, we would never have a meeting. So basically for most of August, we had a couple of meetings and that's it. So it feels like we're all back in school. Yesterday was the first day of school. I hope everyone drives carefully. It doesn't matter how old I get, after Labor Day, always feels like the year starts afresh, like we're back in business. So welcome everybody. I hope the first couple of days for those with children's school systems has gone well. I hope the parents are adjusting. I'm sure the kids are. So just an announcement that we are right up, coming up with 9/11. The fire departments, Briarcliff Ossining, do a very nice memorial service at the waterfront, 7 p.m. on September 11th. Many people in this community were affected directly by this event. It really did change a lot of people's lives. It changed the way security is looked at throughout the country. I wrote about it in the mayor's message. I worked in the city at the time. It was, for me, a very it's a transformative moment about how I view things in a big city. But we lost a lot of first responders. We lost a lot of our own residents who were not able to make it back. So I encourage people to honor that day and that event. I know it's in the rearview mirror for many people, and in some ways in a good way, right? Like bad events should be in the rearview mirror, but I encourage people to come and join us on 9/11. It starts at 7 p.m. And I think we have a long agenda because we haven't been around, and I know we're going to executive session afterwards for the people in this room. So let's get started.
Begin with administrative reports. Village Manager Karen DeTore.
Good evening, everybody. As you can see, we're in a different place tonight, but as we work on reservations to the boardroom at 16 Croton and we work on our audio-visual setup at the courthouse, we will be resuming our regular locations within the coming weeks. But for now, we're here in the Operations Center. we have a lot of projects going on right now, but I do want to mention first off that we are experiencing unusually hot weather for this time of year. Therefore, we are opening the community center as a cooling center. So during center hours of operations, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., Wednesday through today through Friday, anyone can drop by if they need to beat the heat. We'll probably extend that on Saturday, 9 to 6, as well as Sunday, if it's still hot, 9 to 3. There is opportunity to swim in the pool. We have somewhat reduced hours because the pool is being used for swim team practice and other things. But during open swim, people can come, and that would be starting at 7 p.m. to 8:45 p.m. Every night this week. And we also, the town has in Lewis Angle Park, the spray pad and the splash park is going to be open until the end of the weekend. So if you're hot and you need to cool off, please stop by the community center. Other big news is the Building and Planning Department's online permitting program, Municity City Squared, is now up and running. And this is no small feat. Thank you, Maddie Zahaj, and our Building and Planning Department and our tech support. This has been an ongoing project. Took a little longer than we expected, but that's often the way when we're merging new technology with older technology. But this program will allow the community residents to apply for building permits online and be able to check status of permits and inspections electronically. And all the information is on the building's website, which you can visit to set up your account. And we have a set of helpful tutorials produced by our own Jamie Hoffman and our staff to take you to step-by-step instructions, how to register an account and search for your property and do everything you need to do online. So from the comfort of your home. So I want to thank everybody for the enormous amount of work that went into that. Getting back to the community center, the pool is about to undergo much needed renovation starting September 11th. And we're planning to complete all of these renovations by end of the year. And we're going to be addressing repairs and upgrades on the pool itself, resurfacing, new lighting, and also upgrading the locker rooms and incorporating a family locker room, which was something that was requested by many residents. So the pool we anticipate will be down for about 2 months, starting in on September 11th. We're hoping to get it up and running by the end of 2 months, but we will be working on the locker rooms at that point. So while we're hoping to have the pool open, just note that there may not be locker room availability, so you'll have to change at home and shower at home. We want to thank former Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff for a $500,000 CREST grant to initiate this project. And it's good to be able to do these upgrades. They were needed, and we have some additional funding to help us pay for it. Other projects.
Before we go, just my continuous sort of request for communications. So if we can in the communication not keep referring to it as maintenance, to me pool maintenance means you're fixing lighting inside the pool or the bottom of the pool, but these are actually either enhancements or upgrades so that the public understands that they're going to see bigger and better and not just fixing. I think we undersell when we use the word maintenance. So if on all of those flyers and all the material, if it could be done, could be maintenance and upgrades, maintenance and enhance, whatever you want. Yeah. It's absolutely a simple word, but it strikes me that we're underselling all the work that we're doing.
Bless you. No problem. That is, we will change it to improvements, renovations, and bigger and better. We'll make sure that we make sure that it's not, again, and for the public, it's not just general maintenance. It is needed renovations and maintenance on existing structures, but again, a whole new locker room, a family locker room, and extensive renovations, making the space nicer and better, and vastly improved. So we also have several other projects underway too. Some are near completion, some are nearing completion. The Five Corners intersection, I do want to update everybody. This project is nearly complete. That's the intersection of Spring and Main. However, supply chain issues are delaying the installation of signaling, which is the last phase of this project. We're hoping now this should be done by the end of the year, not in the fall as we had originally hoped. But hope springs eternal. So James Street, we're working on streetscaping.
I want to interject, a lot of interject.
Okay.
Because you know that this is near and dear to my heart. Oh, thanks. I know it keeps falling down. We in the past 2 to 3 years have really gone bigger on grants, state grants and all that. There are a lot of rules with grants, and some of the delays might be supplies, but some delays are in the way money is being distributed by the state. Not a complaint. They have their own sort of list of projects and municipalities that they support. They've been pretty good to us as far as number of grants. The staff has done a yeoman's job in getting grants, but this particular one is also an issue of grant distribution and how grant has to be tied to when we do things. Otherwise, it would have been done already. And so I just want to make that clear. For all of us, we belong local. We also pay taxes to state representatives. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to. The delay is being caused because of a process in the way the grant money is being distributed. And so again, I just want to put this in perspective. As soon as the money does come, and it will come, then we'll move forward and get the rest of the work done.
So thank you, Mayor. And that's an important point for the Five Corners, because we did receive, thanks to former Assemblywoman Sandy Gallup, $850,000 to complete that project. And the grant does stipulate that we need to get the final grant disbursement agreement signed before we can complete the project. That is also in process, but hopefully the timing of everything dovetails perfectly and we'll be able to complete the project, use the funding. These are all drawdown grants, so it means the village does have to expend the funds and submit invoices to be reimbursed by the state. Nobody writes us a blank check or an open check, unfortunately. James Street, again, this is also a grant. This is a federal grant, a community development block grant that is specifically designed to help low and moderate income communities in various ways. The money can go to nonprofits and municipalities. In this instance, it's going to some streetscaping projects throughout the village that are designed to enhance walkability and increase ADA accessibility and make our sidewalks more walkable and safer for our residents. So that's underway right now. Another grant-funded project, the Multimodal Transportation Hub, which is funded with $2 million from the DRI and another $1 million from Empire State Development Corp. So for a total of $3 million, we are going to be putting that towards a parking structure in a sense, but really it's going to be more than that. So this is a parking structure that will be built in the Brandreth lot behind Open Door and Main Street Deli. And that will be used to replace parking that will be taken away once we do the development of the post office parking lots on Spring and Main and the redevelopment of Market Square. So we had a really great turnout for the first walkthrough. We had 16 prospective architectural design, engineering, and construction management services firm attend on August 25th. And Paul Fraioli, our Director of Public Works, along with Maddie Zahat, were there to brief these contractors and firms on the project. And we are looking forward to their submissions on September 15th. From an RFP that we had issued. Thank you for approving that. And we are also working on several traffic calming and parking and safety initiatives. You may have seen that there's some new stop signs in several neighborhoods, as well as some no parking signs near the corners to make sure that we're keeping cars off the street where they shouldn't be parking, and also making sure that there's good sight lines as we're going around corners. But also some stop signs have been put in different areas on side streets to help the flow of traffic. You know, our village has changed a lot over many years. So what was once a very quiet, walkable neighborhood is still a walkable neighborhood, but maybe with a little bit more traffic than we've had in years past. And this is a way to make sure that people are controlling the speed, that it's still safe for walkability. We're prioritizing walkability and safety. We're motor vehicles as well as pedestrians and bikers. So those projects are going on, and then be careful when you're driving through. There might be a stop sign you weren't used to seeing before. Several other projects were.
Do you know how many were put up?
I don't have the exact number. Paul is out this week, so
right,
when
on vacation
on Monday, I'll get the final count from him. But they're sort of, it's on a rolling basis. So a lot of the signs, the no parking signs have been put up. They're really focused on Indian Village. They also did some work, installed some signs up on Murray Lane and Van Cortlandt Avenue in anticipation of the school season to make sure that things were safe there, because that tends to be a heavily traffic street, as well as a lot of parking on the street that was blocking turn radiuses on some of the side streets. And then I think the place where you'll see the most stop signs are in the Sherwood Park, but in that area.
Stone Avenue, that one.
Yeah, so in that area right off Croton Avenue. So that's something that's ongoing, and I can get you to the total count and when it's going to be completed as soon as Paul gets back next week. Other things that got done.
I'm sorry. If there's a way to put a list up of what's been done and what's planned or tentative and find a word, because they want to put a sign, doesn't work. So the people just are able to go, and I'll call every school year that starts, we get, you have to put a stop sign here, you have to put four-way here, you have to do that. And also, while we're on this topic, I spoke to Trustee Fritchie a couple of days ago. If I can get a timeline on when we're going to look at the bumps and humps thing that we've been talking about for a couple of years around the schools, and if the staff is recommending not to do it, then just say so. Because I rather have the staff make a recommendation that says we're not recommending it and be done with it, and then we can argue with each other, or not. But just going on, and I'm not speaking for you, Bob, but I did say I was going to bring this up when you and I spoke, unless you want to add anything, but it goes in line with stop signs, schools. And I did get a number of notes that say, you know, it's already congested and here and that. All of Westchester is congested. Every river town is congested. Route 9, it took me an hour to get to work this morning. From here to Irvington should take me 20 minutes, took me over an hour. The trucks are using that road because something happened on 9A or whatever they are. They're cutting through. We have an increase in population in some of the river towns. That is not an Ossining issue. That is an issue of schools are back and there are school buses and people are trying to cut through side streets. We're going to inform the public. I think, Maddie, would be helpful to say to people, we hear you. We're looking at what you're requesting. Here's what we are doing and what we're not able to do, so that we don't get the same requests over and over again. So it's appreciated.
We've spent a lot of time talking to residents in various areas, particularly near schools. Whilst, you know, speed bumps have pros and cons to them, one thing that has helped is working with the police department. We've incorporated digital signs that people can see they're speeding and they do slow down, and that's been really helpful. So we are looking to do some things in addition to the stop signs. We were able to use a mobile digital sign to address some issues people were having on Sherwood Avenue. And the response was very good, as well as on Van Cortlandt too. So we have had success with some of the things that we're doing already, and we'll have to just evaluate whether more work is needed. But you will have a recommendation from the staff on that. I don't know what I'm doing with these.
No, it's just you apparently that the mic just.
I'm not even going to comment. But anyway,
so, Karen, before you move on, because it's not just something that Bob has brought this up. I have brought this up for years. It's not the first time in relationship to the humps, not bumps, but humps.
Oh, right, the humps.
2015. And the last time that I brought this up, it was probably about 2 months ago, and you made a suggestion that staff-wise, you didn't have the time at that point. But it seems like now the board, at least the majority, is shifting on the notion of having a little bit more of a safety issue for the pedestrians as well. So it's not just about the schools, with that I think they're primary in those areas, but I have been talking about different areas throughout the village. Correct. You know, Hunter Street, State Street, Spring Street, upper and lower parts of those areas, which I think they're critical as well. That a lot of people like to cut through instead of using Highland Avenue. So again, I'm going to piggyback on what the mayor said is, again, taking advantage of that is at least 2 more people now on the board that wants to see this. I wouldn't want to wait 10 years. And I'll leave it like that.
Okay.
You don't have to.
No.
Just going to leave it at that.
Okay, look. It's been asked for.
Mm-hmm.
I am specifically asking for a recommendation of why and why not and where. You've gotten all the input. There's not going to be a need for more input. 3.2 square miles. And if it's a no, then the board has to say, I get it, or we disagree. We got to like complete this transaction. Otherwise, it's just going around in circles. So if you could add this into the pie. If you can't, then tell us when you will have it and stick with that date.
We've been discussing this, and our Director of Public Works and I have discussed this. It's not off the table. It's something that we can, we are looking, we will have a recommendation. We can bring it to a future work session. That's not a problem. But what I wanted the board to know is that the work is not halting until then. We're also doing other things, because it's never going to be just one specific intervention to make sure that we're addressing traffic calming. So right now we're doing what I would say is the low-hanging fruit. Some of it was at the board's suggestion too, putting in the signage on the corners to make sure that people are not parking 20 feet from the intersection. So and 25 feet from the crosswalk. So that work is all underway, and we will be bringing back a work session to discuss other interventions, including speed humps. So
you're also doing the fire hydrants where the 12 feet or whatever, the painting of that.
I think those are all signed already. So the sign,
I don't think so.
I don't remember seeing new signs for that.
So I have to double check.
Not signs, but the yellow paint, which Paul doesn't like, but the board actually said, we get that you don't like it, but let's do it anyway.
We talked about that. So
just it's all in the same topic.
These things are off the table. It's just we're sort of, working incrementally, and we had an opportunity to take advantage of the low-hanging fruit here. So we will be back, I would say, relatively soon with a work session on, making more substantive, I guess, more structural road improvements if they're required. And really we would need our public works department to weigh in on that. So some of the other projects, so if you remember way back when in July, we provided a second quarter update, and we talked about the major projects that had gone on in the village and gave an update on what was going on. But there's been some smaller capital projects that we've been working on. So just so everybody, all the projects get their due here, we were able to, again, this was through a community development block grant. We were able to replace the community center chiller and roof. That job is complete. Working with the town, this was a town community development block grant to update the kitchen, and some of you were there for the ribbon cutting, and it was a really nice event. So the seniors have a beautiful new kitchen at the community center.
Is Bill planning a bunch of things at that kitchen, or is it just strictly for the seniors?
Right now it's for the seniors, but who knows what's going to happen in that kitchen.
Maddie and I are going to be running a gourmet baby, you're on.
Starting some
That's right.
Baking businesses or something. I don't know.
No, I'm just curious, because there's always been a request to, why don't you do this, and why don't we quote these? So I'm not saying today. I'm just curious as to see it's a town where there's more that it's being used for. I wasn't able to go to the ribbon cutting, but I'm sure that the kitchen looks fantastic.
It is really nice, and I think there is potential to use it for other things, and that's something that we can talk about as Youth Bureau gets more programming dollars. Right now, anticipating that we are going to be starting on redesign of the community center, we're going to sort of pace it a little bit, because we don't want to commit to programs that then stop and start, but once we know the timing and everything, we'll be able to move forward. And I think there is definitely opportunity to have that. All of the space in the community center is really designed to be multi-purpose, multi-use, and serve the community as broadly as possible.
I think I shared with you or Maddie, I don't remember, but I do want to share that I did get more than one note in the past probably month and a half, because August nothing's available. It's nice weather, but people are not around. There are a couple of people who've lived here for over 30 years whose parents depend on that community center, and it's not an affordability issue. They can actually afford lots of different things, but they have grown so close to just being able to be self-sufficient, go to that community center and do the senior programming. So I just want to put it out there because they're so grateful. The people that work there, the staff, I think Bill should hear that, and the town. I already told Liz Feldman about it, but I just want to put in my 2 cents from people who do tell me how important that senior program is to them.
That is good to know, and I'm sure the staff will be happy to hear that as well. It is a well-used center, and we're very grateful for staff and the senior nutrition staff that really create so many programs for so many people of all ages. And this year was a banner year for programming through the recreation center.
Karen, and sorry to pause, and I want to piggyback on what the mayor said as well in regards to the utilization of that kitchen. But if the village is trying to use the program to utilize that kitchen, do we have to form an IMA with the town? Because that's not us, sure, that's the kitchen specifically for the seniors.
Uses through I'm sure, I don't think it would be very difficult to work.
I just want to make sure that, if we're trying to utilize something, we have to make sure coordinate that with the town. Obviously,
I don't think it would be an issue working out, because it would, we would have to prioritize the senior nutrition program. There's no doubt about that, but that program isn't being run all day long, and certainly not every weekend. So I don't think it would be an issue working out with the town. I'm not exactly sure how it would work. I'm sure it's more complicated than I realized, but I'm sure we could also do it easily. We for this building, we did do a roof replacement, and that over the central garage right behind us, and that's now complete. And as I mentioned before, we're updating Village Hall boardroom, and that's coming along quite nicely, and we were able to untangle some wires and get things straightened out under a very sort of complicated wiring system and under once we took out the drop ceiling, but it's coming along nicely. And I really want to, these projects for the most part, obviously some of them were contracted out, but there was a strong hand of John Heitman and his maintenance staff with every project. They are invaluable. They came to the rescue with the kitchen for the town, helping them with some final touches, and on every other project they've just been really phenomenal, and they are great to work with, and a very talented team. So I want to give them a big shout out as well. So lots going on as we get ready to close out this year, but also get ready in anticipation of next year's budget. So we're trying to make sure that all of the things that we've talked about, from the very big downtown revitalization efforts, initiative projects, as well as the water treatment plant. As we focus on those, we're not forgetting about the day-to-day quality of life issues, whether it's parking, whether it's making sure that we're keeping the village as clean as possible, and keeping the parks clean, and protecting our turtles, and any number of different things. So.
Okay. Inside joke, for those of you that don't know, we have some people who are attacking our turtles that we put in the Richard Wishney pond, which I was told about today.
Just a message to everybody: turtles don't eat a lot of food that, bread and things that people feed to ducks and turtles and fish. Don't feed the turtles. Yeah. We've taken care of that. the turtles are fed, and they're also separate from the fish. They need to stay in the woods.
We got to take care of everything in the village.
Yeah.
Okay, is that it?
That's it for now.
Wow, look at you finishing so quickly, even with all the commentary.
Good evening. For Corporation Council, one of the things that we check is status of legislation up in Albany. There are currently over 500 bills that are waiting to be delivered to the governor for her review and signature. Some are rather minor, except for the particular individuals involved, but some are rather major, dealing with pension issues, dealing with statutes of limitation, dealing with municipalities. So when those come through, we're notified. But as I said, it's more than 500 because the way New York works different from other places. There's a time frame to get it to the governor, but it's really when the governor's office calls for the bills. And thus far, there are about 500 plus outstanding that have not yet been called for. So we continue to wait to see what happens with that. Last week, I had a Zoom conversation with Monique Ho, Eric Costa-Viola, and Sarah Saltz with regard to Project Mover. They are in the process of preparing draft right-of-way access agreements and a memorandum of understanding with the village. I hope to have that within the next 1 to 2 weeks to review that. Then come back before the board for a discussion of those particular agreements so that the village manager can be authorized to sign them. This is just the first stage of those particular agreements, but at least it's beginning to move, in that regard. As we enter the final quarter of the year, we start to look at contracts that are expiring at the end of the year to see what changes need to be made, what needs to be revised. Also, we're starting to hit periods. We're starting to hit times now where we have to notify the other side to contracts if we wish to renew the contracts. And so those are things that, I discuss with Maddie, with Karen, so that we can all keep on time, that we don't lose track of that, and we can take care of that. We're obviously in the process of looking at different insurance policies, and that will be something that will take up time. Tonight, we do have one of our resolutions is to approve the issuance of requests for proposals with regard to our third-party administrator for liability matters. And it's important because the third-party administrator is basically the person through whom all of our litigation goes. It comes to me and then it goes to them. They send it to outside counsel. They get the bills. They send the bills back to us. And in many cases, particularly with the most small claim matters, they are the folks who settle those cases. So it's an important role. And they also provide us with very valuable information in terms of the number of outstanding claims, how much has been paid in a particular year, where we are in terms of our self-insured retention. So that's quite important. The agenda tonight also has a resolution seeking approval from the board to authorize the village manager to sign an agreement with, I've got it here, Bauer Office Solutions with regard to copiers for the police department. And that's something that they are in need of. And finally, there is a resolution for a proposed text amendment. You heard about this previously. This is the resolution to refer that text amendment to the planning board so that they can consider it at their meeting in September. Thank you.
Thank you, Corporation Counsel.
Next, Chief.
Good evening. Couple quick things from the police department in terms of staffing. Last week we said goodbye to Officer Jonathan Colon, who retired after 20 years of service, my academy classmate. With his retirement, Officer Randolph completed field training, will take his place and is now full duty. Lots of training going on for our staff right now. We have 2 officers currently at Chemical Munitions Instructor School, which is the school that allows you to become a in-house instructor for pepper spray, something we've always had, and we needed to re-up to make sure that we can continue with all of our in-service training in our building. Next week, we have just completed was Officer Valencia just came back from the New York State Juvenile Officers Association school. He's one of our school resource officers. Also coming up, our command staff will be headed to Albany for the New York State DCJS Criminal Justice Symposium. And some of our women in law enforcement will be headed to the New York Women in Law Enforcement Annual Conference. And with back to school, Officer Tompkins is back to the high school, Officer Valencia back to the middle school. The rest of our staff is cycling through the lower schools. And a big reminder to everybody to stop for school buses with the stop sign out. We have both marked and unmarked units out patrolling. Lots of tickets have been issued, so that'll continue. That's all for tonight.
Chief, next organization announcements. Announcements shall be event related only and shall be no more than 2 minutes in length. Do you have anyone who wishes to address the board with organization announcements? If so, please come up, state your name and address, please.
So I just want to make this clear because we don't have, we've started putting something out that explains how it all works. You can pass the baton, but every individual gets 2 minutes. And Jamie, she will signal you about 30 seconds into it to wrap up. I know you came as a group, but every person that comes up here gets 2 minutes on this topic. Thank you, sir. And we need the name and, if you're a Nossing resident, your address would be appreciated for the record.
Bill Hanauer, 11 Fairview Place, House.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Over the summer, a coalition of concerned residents of the Sparta community, after several years of inactivity, has reconstituted the Sparta Association, an organization to preserve and improve the quality of life in the Sparta neighborhood. The Sparta Association shall be represented at all public meetings where the subjects to be discussed are pertinent to the association, such as meetings of the village board, the town board, the Board of Education, zoning board of appeals, planning board, and historic review commission. Current topics of concern include the proposal for the construction of residential buildings on the Arcadian Shopping Center campus, and traffic on Rockledge Avenue, Spring Street, Revolutionary Road, Hudson, and Liberty Streets. There shall be 4 meetings per year. The first meeting of the full membership shall be held on September 11, 2023 at 7:30 at the Jump Tavern, an unfortunate choice of doing. All residents and owners of property in the Sparta Historical and Architectural Design District, as defined by the Austin Village Law Number 4 of May 6, 1975, shall be voting members. Associate non-voting members shall be open to those who are interested. We invite everyone interested to join us. There is strength in numbers. We need all of our neighbors and friends to affect village policy, ensure the security of our wonderful historic.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to say something? It's this point in the agenda, because I know some of you came in after we discussed it with former Mayor Hanauer. It's 2 minutes and it's organizational oriented, not about topics. If you're here about like the Arcadian or whatever, that's actually not at this point in the agenda.
Under the visitor record.
That's correct. That's correct. So, but if anybody has about the organizational, that's what this is for. Please.
In the neighborhood. Hello.
How are you?
And first, Rochelle Udell Tertian. I'm at 12 Liberty Street. And I want to thank you all for the lovely piece of sidewalk in front of my house, which is now safer for everybody in the neighborhood. We are very, very grateful. Now, I'm not going to go into any detail on the Arcadian situation. I'm here to make a request that in advance of that kind of a discussion, we, the Sparta Association met with the Scarborough group. We met with the Chemies Co group. Organizationally, we're pulled together. We're a huge number of people when you think of the 205 units there, the 130 units there, the 60 units there. What we would like to do is ask you for how we would coordinate with you in the future. Not at this moment, we know that it's premature, but we really want to put the request out there early so that we can get ahead of it and not sort of, as you said earlier, go through the revolving door. So our request to you is who would be handling that project from your side, because we want to be totally transparent with you from our side, tell you what we know. Like we just found out that Urseptidal was sold to Regency Centers. I don't know whether you know that or not or whatever. So we have no, I'm sharing that with you from an organizational point of view. I'd like to know what the return would be.
So these are times for the board to hear the public.
Right.
Literally, because government's very literal. It took me a couple of years to it isn't for a discussion.
Yeah.
I hear what you're asking. We will, the village manager is hearing you, assistant village manager, and we will get back.
That's great. Thank you.
So we appreciate that. And it's nice to see you again.
Good to be here.
You're good? Okay.
Thank you. Next.
There's nobody on Zoom, I'm assuming. There is. So How do we know?
Now it's public comment on agenda items. Visitors shall be accorded 1 4-minute opportunity to address the board on any of the resolutions on the agenda. So is there anyone who wishes to comment on any of the agenda items this evening?
Seeing no one here. Okay.
Visitor recognition. Visitors shall be accorded 1 3-minute opportunity to address the board on issues not relating to the agenda, but of relevance to the common good of the village. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board under visitor recognition?
I think this is what it is. Now you're on.
Hello, hi.
Good evening.
My name's Gina Piazza, 10 Riverview Court in Austining. I'm the current president of the Sparta Association. I did write all of you, or many of you, in advance about the Spring Street Hill issue. And I just wanted to come here in person to address the urgency of getting some signage on that hill that lets people know there's a curve up ahead and to slow down. The house at the bottom of the hill has been hit a number of times. They're finally repairing it. The family has not been living there since January. Con Ed was there today to replace the Con Ed box because that was smashed into. 2 young boys were in the house at the time. Fortunately, they were in a back room and they weren't killed. But this house has been hit a number of times. And I was appalled when I realized there's not one sign that says curve ahead, any indication. Many streets have arrows that indicate something's happening, but you go down that street and it looks straight until all of a sudden it curves at the end. Again, this is an issue because all the streets through Sparta are bypass roads or Highway 9. People don't want to stop at the stop lights. So they'll come down those streets and take stop signs as a suggestion. So there's a lot of traffic rushing through those stop signs. But I appreciate whatever can be done on an urgent basis to get 1 sign, 2 signs, any signs up on that hill. The family will be looking forward to moving home at some point, and I just feel they're in danger. The other thing that I did put on the letter was the suggestion about putting bollards, such as I noticed there are 50 of them in the center of town, protecting that intersection. And it seems that 3 of them, decorative ones to protect the house, would be something perhaps the village could handle. I don't know if speaking to the village is the right party to speak to. It looks like it is. I didn't know if we should be contacting DPW or somebody else.
DPW reports to the village manager. It's
all
all
right.
village.
So I got
Right.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're happy to be working with you all, and of course we'll be working more with you as we bring the Sparta Association together. There are a lot of traffic issues in the neighborhood, and I'm happy to hear about the walkability issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board under visitor recognition?
Up there, nobody. I just don't know if anybody
If there's anybody online that would like to participate, please raise your hand.
virtual.
Virtual hand. Okay, thank you.
All righty.
Thank you. Now moving on to the village board resolutions. Approval of minutes, August 9, 2023. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby approves the minutes of the August 9, 2023 special meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Go ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of minutes, August 16, 2023. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby approves the minutes of the August 16, 2023 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
We have a second?
I need a second.
I think I have to abstain.
Why?
Seconding.
That was a 9 a.m. meeting, right? That was the 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Second, I think I was there.
All those in favor?
Abstain. I was in there.
I don't know which meeting.
You don't remember which meeting you're in?
Well, I have the 3 with the 2. So.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
approval of voucher detail. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin hereby approves the voucher detail dated September 6, 2023, in the amount of $554,473.94. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any comments? Stuart?
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, authorizing the village manager to sign an agreement with Bauer Office Solutions, Canon Financial Services. Resolved as following review by the Corporations Council. The village manager is authorized to sign an agreement with Bauer Office Solutions, Canon Financial Services for a 60-month lease of copiers for the police department, along with a service agreement pursuant to the August 14, 2023 proposal. And be it further resolved that for this contract, Bauer Office Solutions is utilizing Canon USA's New York State Umbrella IT Contract PM 68151 on behalf of the police department. And be it further resolved that pursuant to the Village of Austin procurement policy, the village may procure goods, including apparatus, materials, equipment, and supplies, and services through contracts led by the United States or any agency thereof, or any state or political subdivision or district therein, where such contract was let to the lowest responsible bidder or on the basis of best value. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments? How many are we getting? Is this 1, 2, 3, 4?
Chief, I thought it was 5.
It's 5.
5 there.
And it's coordinated with the rest of the copiers that we have somehow?
This vendor that the IT department told us was their preferred vendor and
Okay.
products.
So Karen, is this what are we using these Canons? When I started here, every office had different, do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
We were looking at vouchers, everybody had different systems, different everything. So I just want some clarification. I'm sure this is great, just want to understand.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mayor. This is exclusive to the police department, but we do have a growing consortium as leases expire on other machines, all sort of being grouped together. So there's, consolidated billing, which is helpful for our finance office and also to make sure that payments are applied correctly.
So this is just a police and it's not necessarily the same as what we have everywhere else.
That is correct, but it's what I believe you're already using now. So, yeah.
So it's more, and I'm sorry, it's more like a replacement of 5, pretty much.
It's nothing new. It's a replacement of existing.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, because I missed that piece of it. Thanks, Manny. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Referral of proposed zoning text amendment to the planning board.
There we go.
Whereas that pursuant to section 270-59 of the Village of Austin Code, this chapter or any part thereof may be amended, supplemented, or repealed from time to time by the village board on its own motion or upon recommendation by the planning board. Prior to the public hearing, every proposed amendment shall be referred by the village board to the planning board for a report which shall be rendered within 62 days of such referral. And whereas the Board of Trustees has been duly petitioned by 325 North Highland LLC to consider amendments to section 20, Appendix A, Table A1 of the Village of Austin Code with respect to allowing animal-related uses general as a permitted use and animal-related uses intensive as a conditionally permitted use in the Office Research OR zoning district. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 270-59 of the Village of Austin Code, the Board of Trustees refers the proposed zoning text amendments to the planning board, and be it further resolved that the planning board shall issue its report on the proposed text amendments to the zoning code within 62 days of this referral, and be it further resolved that pursuant to section 270-59A1, the planning board shall make inquiry and determination concerning the items specified below. A, whether such changes are consistent with the aims and principles embodied in the law as of particular districts concerned. B, which areas, land uses, buildings, and establishments in the village will be directly affected by such changes and in what way they will be affected. C, the indirect implications of such changes in its effect on other regulations. D, whether such proposed amendments are consistent with the aims of the comprehensive plan of the village and the local waterfront revitalization program. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Sorry.
Any comments? I only have a question. Stuart, anything different here that should be pointed to us from the discussion we had?
No, Mayor, this is the amendment that they discussed previously.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Fire Department removal from active roles. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby removes Otis Curtis from the active roles of Ossining Volunteer Fire Department, Independent Hose Company number 6. Do I have a motion? So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Stuart?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Although not mentioned on here, is there any continuing business of the board? Not seeing any. New business of the board. Do we want to discuss the contract before we do the vote, or do we want to?
For TPA?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have A and B under new
Yes,
business.
yes, I see. I'm just sort of jumping ahead.
It's all right.
A. Authorizing the village manager to issue a request for proposals for third-party administrative services for claim management and adjustment services for 2024 to 2026. Resolved that upon review by the Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to issue a request for proposal for the village's third-party administrator services for claim management and adjustment services for a 3-year period commencing January 1, 2024 and ending on December 31, 2026. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any comments? Stuart?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now, item B, village tree warden. Maddie, I'll give that to you.
Sure. Thank you, Stuart. So as the board may be aware, for a very, very long time now, the village has used the services of consulting arborist. And the scope of services has sort of evolved over time from what I understand. But basically the lion's share of this person's responsibility, who again is an outside consultant, is to work with the building department on tree removal permit applications. So effectively, if somebody has a tree on their property that for whatever reason they no longer wish to have there, they mark the tree, the arborist goes out to the site, they inspect it to make sure that, in fact, this is the tree that's marked on the plan. They can give some comments relating to replanting plans if necessary. And then they work with the building department later on if there is a replanting to make sure that the tree planted was appropriately planted in the correct area and that it's healthy before the permit can be closed. This is an agreement, from my understanding, that has long been sort of informal, that we have an agreement with a particular person who does this work and we have insurance for them, but no contract. And so this is something that the building inspector, Joe Augustinelli, and myself have been working to sort of formalize. We did do a couple of interviews with folks over April and May, I believe. What we were really looking for, besides the formalized contract, was also an expedited turnaround time. Generally speaking, this is not something that folks want to wait a month before they get approval to cut down a tree. And also someone who is a little bit more used to using technology. So that is why we were exploring some different options than who we're currently using. The person who we've been using has been of great service to the community, but we think as our tree replanting program and potentially the tree code are sort of evolving, that we're looking for something perhaps a little bit different than what we've had in the past. So the proposal that we got from the person who was, universally the choice among everybody who was part of the interview process, had submitted a proposal. We've sort of gone back and forth over the months at sort of fine-tuning what was in this person's proposal as compared to what we need, and making sure that she fully understands the obligation and that we understand what she's prepared to do. We've gone back and forth with insurance. So we think we're finally at a point now where we can settle on an agreement. The way that it's going to work, this person is somewhat local in one of the other river towns. We would basically be having her come up either every Friday or every other Friday, bundling all the inspections in one place and pay by the hour. And although her hourly rate is a little bit higher, we feel it's going to be more efficient and at the end of the day, probably save money. So as a reminder, this is something that folks pay for as a through the tree permit removal application. So we're basically a pass-through for the money. It's possible that based on how fast this person's actually able to get it done, we may or may not ask the board to update the fee and the fee schedule for 2024, but we figure we'll see how a couple of weeks go before we make that request of the board. So happy to ask or answer any further questions. There is certainly no urgency here. So if anyone needs to learn a little bit more or wants to see something different, I'm happy to wait until next week to have this discussion, but we really would like her to get started if at all possible.
Any questions or comments?
I have questions. What's the current rate right now of the person who's doing this?
$70 an hour.
What is the proposed rate?
100.
how many other interviews you had or proposals did you receive for this particular position?
One additional. The difficulty, just to further develop on the answer to that, we got in touch with Westchester County. We got in touch with our regional forester. Unfortunately, many of the people, you have to be a certified arborist, and you have to be somewhat local to do this work. Many of the people we reached out to said that they were not able to help us at this time.
Thank you. I need to learn more. I need to educate myself a little bit more on what that is. Obviously, what is the fee right now?
$85 for, or no, I think it's $110 for 2 trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if this person is charging how much?
$100 an hour.
I need to educate at least myself. I cannot make a decision right now.
So I appreciate this. I wasn't aware of this whole arborist. Do we know what we spent last year on these services? And I know we're a pass-through. I'm just
I can certainly find out. I don't have that information handy. Certainly there is some sensitivity here because the person who has been providing the service has been doing a fantastic job. So we don't want to, disparage them in any way. So we've been trying to make this, a relatively quick process to prevent. Yeah.
Okay. So this is a consulting job. It's not a civil service job, and it's not an arborist working with professional tree care services. Actually make more than that,
right?
Because they're in demand right now. So I don't know enough about this, and I don't like to micromanage personnel. I was waiting for somebody else to say this, but I do want to reiterate my desire that when there is an opening of any kind, that we put out a request for individuals like we do for companies. I read a lot of material that comes out of this village. Not once did I see an ad for this position. I must have missed it. That's fine. You could tell me that. But there are lots of people that live here. This could be an opportunity for somebody who, like me, didn't even see an ad for this position. If it's not civil service, you didn't go through civil service. I think I have no question in my mind that you did the right thing, and I'm not second guessing, but it would make me feel better if I knew that this went to BOCES, that it might have been an opportunity for somebody who recently graduated from somewhere, who knows where. It might be, the way we look for people, even if they're not high-paying jobs, should be much more open to a much wider group of people, so that we can at least say, look, we put a wide net out there. We spent 30 to 60 days. Everything you said, and I'm only looking at you because of the way we're seated right now. Like, otherwise I have to go like this and look at Karen and look around. So don't take this as a thing that you did, because I'm not actually questioning the process. But every time we hear about a job, I want to hear, we posted this in the Gazette, and we put this on the internet, and we posted on Facebook, except for civil service, which you have to have certain pieces.
Right.
Somebody's kid may be looking for a job and would move back to Austin, who grew up here. I don't know. It could be opening for minorities. It could be openings for women, for senior citizens. I don't know. But I'm not getting that sense right now that there was a wide net. That doesn't mean there wasn't. I'm not. But I really appreciate that when we look for jobs. And I don't want to stop this, but it's been asked before. So if we could just keep that in mind. I feel like I'm only talking to you.
I'm hearing every word, by the way.
No, and I don't mean to only talk to you. It's just the way we're in this like horseshoe concept.
You want to switch?
I want to, I want, this is like to everybody. I want opportunities to go from 16-year-olds to 106-year-olds without prejudice, without anything except a wide net, so that people that we don't even know exist at least see it and can apply for it. We did a nice job with the committee where we got many new people, because I think guys did a really good job putting the word out there. And so did Dana. I mean, so I'm only asking as we go forward. And I know this is not a high-paying job. Like, I get it.
It's also like, so I
it's very specific. I totally get what is being said here.
The pool here, it's not to say, because of the certification level, and then
I get it.
So, but that said, I think that's that is something that we're doing more and more when we do have open positions. And as far as
getting younger people in, I do think it's worth noting that we had, I think, what was it? The total number was probably 19, close to 20 interns this year through the youth summer employment program and things. So I think it's it actually is a relatively new way of doing things, but we've been doing it pretty well. I think the nature of this highly technical thing may, you know, it's maybe, you know, it maybe we would have gotten a needle in the haystack. I don't know, but we certainly, there's no reason why we can't do that going forward.
Thank you. I don't want to belabor. I'm just requesting.
No, understood. And certainly, again,
lots of stuff going on next 5 years in this community. You know,
whatever
lots of opportunities, part-time, full-time, you know, all sorts of stuff. I want a wide net, use the mayor message for openings, you know, whatever venue, social media, just put it.
Too, sure. Was that on that page as well? I mean, we have done very little in that page where sometimes I've seen openings in other departments, but our page is very limited to what we could be using. And Maddie, when you ask your request for this particular case, is not that I want to micromanage things, but I'm mindful of a budget.
Yes, process. Same.
So the budget, the board trustee does control, and I feel that I'm one of the people that does control that. So it's not that I don't want you to feel that I'm micromanaging. I want to educate myself what other communities are doing.
I completely understand.
You know, what the best decision I could be making. If the board feels that they're comfortable doing the decision right now, I mean, it's the will of the board, it's the majority of the board. I think for me, like I said before, I need to educate myself a little bit more to understand what can I do or what the 2 cents can I bring. Right now, I don't have anything. I don't have any input to give you. So.
But it is a budget, 100% correct. But it's one of those funky, like, it's pass-throughs, and then you'll have to figure it out.
I totally agree.
Oh, no,
but it's again,
so we are
no, exactly. It's the taxpayers' money. You know, that to me, any fee that we are changing, it affects the taxpayers. So to me, it is a budget sensitive issue that I have to be sensitive.
It's just one of those interesting, like, pass-through concepts. Thank you.
Can I make just one more comment? I agree with everything that was said. I think everything sounds exactly right. Just 2 clarification points. In terms of like posting it on the HR page, this is really more of like a professional services. So different companies that may have been interested, may have been like Save a Tree, things like that. So this isn't necessarily a job for an individual. It just so happens that this individual is their own entity that we interviewed. So I want to make that point.
And this is, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Just the second point was, you know, we could certainly discuss this being a shorter term contract and getting it on the RFP rotation, which I think was what Stuart had in mind anyway, particularly since, you know, I was on the EAC meeting last night. They have some ideas about suggestions that they might like to incorporate in our tree code. And we have a couple as well. So, you know, perhaps as we, you know, just sort of get our legs under us in terms of what we're working on right now and get a better system, this could be a shorter term contract. And then once we really understand what we need this person to do more broadly, we could go out for a more formal request for qualifications sometime next year. Like I said, there is no immediate urgency to do this. So if there's enough discomfort, I am happy to re-examine how we go forward.
Just clarify, we talked about technology. What do you mean with technology?
I'm trying to be somewhat vague as we have someone in the position right now, and I don't want to.
Is it more software driven? I'm not talking about that. Is it more like now that we have Unicity? Sure. Is it something
unrelated?
Okay, that's nothing to do with it.
No.
Okay. But you know what? If you go to the exec session after this, because like I would consider this a matter of personnel, since the person does get paid by us. And if you feel more comfortable discussing it there to answer the trustee's question, we could do it that way.
Or I can just call you tomorrow.
Okay.
Why don't we put a pin in it? And we can put something, and we can have the same person apply and have a little bit more of a formal process so that the board can see the whole spectrum. And I will make a call to the person who's doing the work now and let them know that that's the process.
If I read it correctly, the arborist, I didn't even know half this stuff until I saw the notes. I appreciate that. Always learning new stuff, loving this job. I didn't know that this was really for private residences. This is not the folks that cut the trees or take care of the trees on our properties, parks, streets, blah, blah, blah.
No.
What arborist goes out with those folks?
So that's 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 really a landscaping type.
That's a whole
company.
different
It's
discussion.
a whole different
Got it.
discussion, and I think that it would be good to have Public Works here, because we have many internal discussions about that.
Interesting. Okay, so this is
But
only
this is-
residences, also not corporation, right? So it's like that we have some, so is it also, what business would do it? I don't know.
Well, if I could just give a little bit more clarity. So like I said, the lion's share of what this person currently is doing and what someone in the role would be doing is going through the tree removal permit process and then possibly developing a replanting plan based on, you know, okay, this person's yard is very muddy. So we think a small tree that does well in muddy conditions, and then provide a list.
Right.
We're trying to formalize it a little bit so that people have a better expectation of what, you know, is coming down the pike.
Go ahead. That's right. I have a question.
Yeah. Just two more things and then I'll put a sock in it. So one is, you know, occasionally we have a tree on village property that we have questions about.
Right.
So the arborist is then called in to make an assessment of that tree. Obviously they don't have a crystal ball. Their assessment is good for only a fixed period of time, and then it needs to be reassessed and so on and so forth. I think that's a very minimal share. But this person who we've actually been speaking to about, you know, taking over this contract, had said, well, who are you using as part of your, you know, annual bid or biannual bid? Because I'd really like to work hand in hand with them when they're trimming village trees. So for example, you know, some of our ornamentals and things like that. And I thought that was a brilliant idea to sort of, you know, to sort of build a better relationship between those two professional service contracts, so that we make sure that the folks who are actually doing the landscaping are doing it the way that it ought to be done.
Okay. I have a question, but I think the trustee has one before me.
Yeah. So part of the application process, if I remember correctly, an application is if I have a tree and I'm dying and I want to remove it, I can hire a company, and that company has an arborist and staff, correct? That's part of the application, because they can certify that that is the case and they don't have to use the village arborist.
I am not aware of that being a component of the process. I've been working with Joe and Joan on this pretty extensively, and it's not once come up.
That's what I was remembering before, because I remember reading that warning at some point, unless it changed.
It may have.
You know, because if that's the case, and I'm gonna double check myself, and the application later on, if that's the case, then reality is the option of the owner at that point to use their arborist, the village, or the arborist within the company itself, and then we don't have to add this layer to what you're trying to put. So I think that's the reason why I was saying before, I need to educate myself a little bit more, because I think that is a component or an option right now that we have.
We don't have that option.
There's two applications though.
The use of the property owner's use of an arborist is where they present a plan to us for tree removal, and their arborist would indicate what trees have to come up and have to come down. Revolutionary Road is a prime example.
Okay.
But we then send our arborists out to basically see what trees should go in, what trees should be replaced. Their arborist does not serve in the place of the tree warden.
Okay. But there's two applications, one an emergency application removal, and then the regular application process.
That is true. Yes.
Okay. So that's probably what I'm thinking.
Yeah, an emergency is just this tree needs to come down. You're providing the insurance information, the person who's to do it, and that's the end of the story. Yeah.
But the arborist still has to go there.
Yeah, it still has to be certified that like a dead or
the village,
dangerous.
the village.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's fine. And I see you've streamlined it so they're not here on call. They're here every other week, and they get a bundle of requests so that, you know, it's within a reasonable time. Do the arborists, I'm just interested in this because we have a lot of predatory plants.
Oh yeah.
All through the river towns, right up to Rhinebeck, from what I understand. And the bamboo, which is growing actually in the town more than in the village, is highly invasive. And Croton has got them everywhere, right by the Croton River. And they kill everything else, essentially, and then bring bugs with them and all that. And because we have a community where people live very close to each other, and I don't think that many people are aware of what invasive plants are and predatory plants are and all of that. Do the arborists have a role in sort of looking at different things and saying to people, you know, that bamboo you've got growing all over, that's damaging your property and your neighbors and the environment? Or is that really not their role? Their role is really, there's a request, they react to the request.
I don't believe at this time the person in the role has been really going too far outside of the parameters of just looking at the specific tree. That's not to say that they couldn't, but I will tell you that another very lively discussion we had last night during the AAC meeting, they're very, very jazzed about the spotted lanternfly campaign. And they want to make sure that that's going into the web blast. So we're going to give you some stuff to make sure, but they want to do an invasive species of the month campaign. So we're going to highlight plant and animal species that everybody should be on the lookout for. So it's just an interesting point that you brought that up. But going forward, hopefully it's this person. Hopefully she decides that she's willing to wait for longer if the board decides they want a more formal process. But whomever it is, we can certainly encourage them to at least in an advisory role say, hey, by the way, while I was out there, I noticed X, Y, and Z. That, might be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, look, we live very close to one another, even in the biggest of properties you're living in. When people come in, for me, when people talk about their house and their rights, that's very nice. But what they do affects their neighbors on all sides, and they affect the community. And that's a very hard lesson. One of the reasons people buy houses is so they have individual ownership. And so it's anti-intuitive, some of this, and most people aren't aware of, well, especially when you come from another state, another environment, you don't even know about this stuff. I didn't know about any of this stuff. So I'm just interested in seeing if we can also, that doesn't hurt to educate. And for those that are interested, this could be helpful. And for those that aren't, it's not going to be very helpful. I'm sure we'll get a lot of comical remarks talking about bamboo tonight. But it actually damages properties. So that's one of the questions I had. I think you came here, though, tonight to see if the board is interested in moving forward or not. Trustee Quesada is not, because he wants to be more educated, so he wants to hold off a bit. You're not in a super rush, but I didn't get a feel from the board where we are with this. So if I could just ask the rest of the board. Excuse me.
Thank you, Maddie. I'm comfortable moving forward as explained tonight.
Others?
I do have, I would like to learn more, but that's something I can learn later. But I mean, I'd like to, I'm comfortable with moving forward. I do have some questions about, the differences in the jobs and all that stuff, but, not so much to hold it up.
Okay. Sir?
I agree with, what you say about putting the jobs out there, but I'm pretty sure it's a limited pool.
Yeah.
Of people to pull us from, so I'm okay with moving forward.
So we have 3 votes to move forward for next week. Is that what I'm getting? Okay.
We can, if that would make the board comfortable, we can put together a resolution to formally go on the agenda, and I can make sure that you have all the background information as well, the proposal and contract leading up to that meeting, rather than read one into the record this evening.
Okay. And that way answers can be questioned.
Absolutely.
If we need to hold it up, then we're going to have to hold it up if something comes up.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
We have a motion to adjourn this meeting to executive session for matters of personnel and litigation.
So, second.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I'm
Aye.
sorry.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, Stuart. Folks, thank you. It is, I keep looking like there's a clock up there, but there isn't a clock up there. I'm used to, it's 8:50. We still have the rest of the evening for executive session, which is just the board and invited guests. So we will do that. Have a lovely evening. We will be meeting again next Wednesday on our regularly scheduled time. But again, we continue to be in the operations center for those that want to come in person, and the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
We just need a few minutes to get everything else.
Yes, I also need a few minutes because